see. If we'd known the weather was going to be this good, we might have had an outdoor meeting.
Yeah.
I think we suggest that, right? It's kind of painful to be inside when it's so gorgeous out. So welcome to the August 22nd meeting of the Rotary Club of Louisville. I am Lori Hudson-Flannery. I'm the club president and a Paul Harris Fellow. I would like to welcome up to the front of the room today Barry Dunn, who is the president and CEO for CoServe for Kids, to do today's invocation.
Thank you, Lori. Please bow your heads with me. Most gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, thank you for this meal, and thank you for these people. You have blessed us in so many ways, and we thank you for it. Please be with our speakers today as they educate and inform us. Help each of us to leave today's meeting with a better understanding of our community, and let that understanding guide us in showing your love to others. Please be with those who direct our charitable efforts so that we may be your hands and feet to those who need us. Please encourage each person in this room to be a light in a world that can sometimes be dark. And please remind every person in this room, no matter what they experience, of your love. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Barry. Now to lead us in the pledge and the four-way test is Bridget Johnson. Bridget is the Chief Operating Officer for New Directions.
Always a little adjust. Hello, everyone. Please allow me to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please allow me to lead you in the four-way test.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. And this is a reminder to please make sure all of your devices are either turned off or are silenced. So now we move into the part of the program where we recognize the guests who are here with us today. So Rotarians, if you have a guest, please make your way to this microphone here to my right. As you introduce yourself to the club, please then recognize your guest. Please recognize your guest by stating their name, their title, and any affiliation that they might have. And guests, when you are being introduced, if you will please stand briefly so that we can put a face with a name. Thank you.
President Lori and Rotarians, honored to be here today, and I'd like to introduce my guest, Ken Grossman, Executive Image Custom Clothiers. First guest, brother of our speaker today, Pat Mulloy, is Mark Mulloy. Mark's a longtime Louisville attorney of 44 years and a litigator, and we're having a bit of a Ballard reunion over here. So, you know, it's Louisville, so I got to talk about that. So Mark graduated from Ballard in 1973 with my brother Phil. So thanks for being here. Our next guest is, he's also Mulloy, Tim Mulloy, who has Mulloy Commercial Real Estate. He's one of the primary investors in Louisville City Soccer and has been a big proponent and supporter of that and done a lot of work along Main Street. He graduated, of course, from Ballard High School in 1978. And my next guest, I'm sure everyone knows John Ramsey, the infamous John Ramsey, who's currently serving with Pat Mulloy as the Director of City Partnerships in the Mayor's Office. John's had a stellar career in radio, Wave TV, and also, you might be aware, he was a good friend of Muhammad Ali, and currently one of his projects is he's doing a podcast with Lonnie Ali. It's called Ali and Me, and I'm trying to recruit John to be a future Rotary speaker, so hopefully we'll be able to nail that down.
Welcome.
President Laurie, I'm Henry Kaiser, and my guest today is Carol Hebel. Carol's the great old friend and neighbor of the Mulloy family. Carol Hebel.
Welcome.
guest today is Will Donaldson. He's the owner of a company called DPR Enterprises, which owns a number of local Jimmy John's restaurants.
Welcome.
President Lori, John Jennings. My guest today is Eric Gleiss. He's one of my good coworker friends at Higginbottom.
President Lori, I'm Bob Nesmith. My guests today are my wife, Karen, and our former rector at St. Matthew's Episcopal Church, Lucinda Laird, who married our speaker's daughter.
That's Louisville for you.
Lucinda left Louisville, of all places, Paris, France, to be dean of the American Cathedral. And now, I don't understand it, but she's in Venice, Italy. Had a tough trip here. She's visiting, we're glad to coincide with the pastor.
Welcome.
President Lori, my name is John O'Callahan, and my guest today is our agency manager, vice president, who works with me at Premier Caregiver Services, Kelly Wood.
Welcome, Kelly.
Hello, President Lori. My guest today is a great friend of mine, Donnie Atkins. Donnie Atkins is general manager for River City Furniture, and in his spare time, he's a real estate developer.
Welcome.
Hi, President Lori. I'm Sandra Dodge, and I'm pleased to have with me today Dom Manning. Dom is a friend, a colleague, and a fellow board member. He is a senior director at C2 Communications and serves with me on the Parks Alliance of Louisville board. So,
Nice.
and a future Rotarian.
I'm President Lori. I'm John Bush. I have three guests with me today. The first two are my brothers-in-law. First one, brother-in-law is Lawrence Palmer, who's the president of Palmer Products here in town. His brother Chris is also here. Chris is the vice president of Palmer Products. Their father was the past president of this club. Their grandfather is the past president of this club. So I'm very, very glad to have them here today. And then I have one more guest, Jim Spratt. Jim is a very good friend of mine. Jim and Pat, our speaker, and I were all in law school together, although in different years. Pat was smarter than we were. Yeah, we were in undergrad together. You graduated 3 years. It took me 4. So anyway, Jim is here. Very glad to have Jim. Jim is a very fine estate planning lawyer from Atlanta who also lives here part of the year because his daughter and grandkids live here as well. So very glad to have all three of them here.
Thank you. Welcome to all of you.
Hi, President Lori and esteemed Rotarians. I have three guests today. I'd like to introduce Shalana Taylor, who is a dedicated business specialist committed to advocating for the equality of underserved communities with expertise in grant writing and partnership development for nonprofit organizations. With a strong background in fundraising, Shalana has successfully secured funding and forged strategic alliances, significantly expanding the reach of I Would Rather Be Reading. Thanks for being here, Shalana.
Welcome.
I'd like to introduce Nakora Humphrey with over 5 years of robust experience in project management, senior project management across diverse industries, including notable engagements with Humana, Cushman, Wakefield, and Wayland Ventures. Nakora boasts a proven track record of steering complex projects from inception to completion. Thank you for joining us. She's with PRG Commercial Property.
Welcome.
But not at all least, Christy French with One Pink Hat, Construction Management, but don't let her fool you. She doesn't wear just one pink hat. She's got about 15 she wears. Thank you so much for being here.
Welcome.
Hello, President Lori. My name is Portia Shoulders, and today my guest is Travis Fox, Vice President of Business Development of Cornerstone Engineering. Please give him a round of applause.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Delene Taylor, Executive Director of the club. We will run a little bit long today. As you can tell, we have lots of guests, and we wanted to make sure and introduce them all. And we also have a couple of special recognitions. So if you do need to slip out at the Q&A period, please try to do so quietly. All right, Ashley Parker with Parker and Klein Real Estate. Ashley, stand up and say hello. Welcome. Are Christy and Jaquita here today? All right, Christy Bartlett is the founder of Option to Success Family Services, and Jaquita Warfield is the CEO. Welcome. Rob Depp, I think I saw him earlier. Hi, he is, I believe, a guest of Vernon Foster, is that correct? Who was not able to join us today, and he is Vice President of Client Development for Luckett and Farley. Welcome.
Welcome.
Pastor still here today? Coy Still, did he make it back to join us? There he is. All right, welcome back, Pastor. Coy Still, Senior Pastor, Walnut Street Baptist Church. And I believe that's it. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rotarians, for bringing your guests, and thank you guys for being here with us today. Is Lewis Seeger in the room? Please stand up, Lewis. If you are a guest today, you'll hear me ring the bell as we adjourn. If you will make your way to this table over here in the corner, there's a placard on top of the table that says, "What is Rotary?" And if you could spend 5 minutes or so listening to Lewis give you a little snapshot about what our club is all about, that would be appreciated. Lewis Seeger, thank you. All right. We had several Rotarians in the news this week, so we're going to do a little spotlight on a few of them. Rotarian Denise Sears spoke at the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition 2024 South Summit about the work of SOS, where she is the CEO, in promoting health equity. Rotary was well represented at the recent Partners in Philanthropy Awards. So recognized, we had members Cynthia Napak, Lyndon Pryor, Maria Smith, and Paula Grisanti. They were honored as 2024 visionary nonprofit leaders in our community. If you'd like to know more about them or the awards, you can look at our website because we have a little bit more information on there. Congrats to Jeremy Vokerka and Miranda Construction, which is being named again 2 times in a row, on being one of the few Kentucky companies to make the 2024 Inc. 5,000 list of fastest growing private companies in America. So that's Inc. magazine as in incorporated, right? Not Inc. as in ink that you write with. So let's congratulate all of those individuals. We're Kentucky proud, we're local proud, we love it. And then we have some activities coming up that I want to note. It is, the information isn't sparse, of course, but I do want to note things that are coming up in a fairly short order to call your attention to them. The Social Activities Committee invites you to a Rotary happy hour on Friday, September 6th on the patio of Colonial Gardens, which, as you know, is right across the street from the Iroquois Amphitheater. The popular band, the Checkmates, will be playing from 6 to 9 p.m. And if you're interested, contact Jeff Underhill for more information, or I think you can just show up. The committee has also planned a Rotary Day, the social committee, has also planned a Rotary Day at the volleyball court on Sunday, September 22nd at 12:30 noon. If you come, you'll be able to watch the U of L women's team take on the Nebraska Huskers. Mentoring for our Rotary Honors Scholars, of course, school is back in session, so that's starting back up again, and it's going to be at Western High School beginning on September 17th, and at Iroquois High School beginning on September 25th. You'll need to see Club Treasurer Craig Mooney if you would like to be a part of this program, so he can make sure that everybody is ready for the number that we bring. New dates have been added to help with the Imagination Library. Of course, you remember this is the Dolly Parton effort, where she's has an organization that's sending a free book to every preschool child in certain zip codes once a month until they enter kindergarten. So that's her effort. And details are on the screen, or you can also talk to Rotarian Rick Harnett for more information. While I was prepping for this meeting today, a lovely woman named Amisha introduced herself and said that she is the bartender here. And they have started a new thing where they are opening the bar, and you notice I say opening the bar, not that it's an open bar, right? But they are opening the bar here at the club from 11 to 2. So if Deputy Mayor talks too long, we see you sneaking out, we'll sneak back in. You can get some libations there. She said they're starting with beer and wine. They'll also have margaritas, both regular and spicy, and old fashions. They think that it's going to be popular enough that they're going to end up having, a full bar, but we got to start small. So I wanted to make sure I brought that to your all's attention. I know some people like to meet after Rotary, and instead of staying in this room or going to a local bar, you can just go to the other side of this building and introduce yourself to Amisha. And finally, please take a couple of minutes to give us some feedback. We're working on the communications between the staff and the club members. So if you will look at the survey link at the top of the Sparks newsletter, it's just a few questions. It won't take very long, and it really is very helpful to staff as they try to figure out and tweak the best ways that we can communicate with you so that you get the most out of the club. Now I'd like to invite to the podium Amy Luttrell, President and CEO of Goodwill Industries of Kentucky, Chair of the Rotary Foundation, member of the Paul Harris Society, and Major Donor Level 2 for a special recognition.
Thank you, President Lori, and I will also invite Fred Callan to join me up here at the podium. Fred, as many of you know, is a retired circuit court judge, and he is also the chair of our Rotary's mighty gun violence reduction subcommittee. Yes, so he's our fearless leader there. So today we are recognizing Fred as a major donor. And what that means is that over time, someone, a Rotarian, has given a total of $10,000 to the Rotary Foundation, which is Rotary International's foundation giving arm. So Fred has done that as of now, and please help me thank him. Of our appreciation. So, our Rotary motto is service above self. And what that means is that we as Rotarians give of our time, our talent, and our treasure to help make the world a better place together, right? And the Rotary Foundation is a great way to help us give some of our treasure to do that. And the thing that I like about the Rotary Foundation is that it allows each one of us and really to do things that we could never do on our own, and really our whole club could never do together. So it allows us to be part of something that's a lot bigger than us, but has real significance in the world. And as many of you know, my own personal favorite is eradication of an entire disease, polio. So that's pretty special, right? That's pretty impressive. That's just an example of the kinds of things we can do together with gifts to the foundation that we cannot do on our own. If you have any doubts about giving to the foundation, it's been evaluated by Charity Navigator and has the highest rating of Charity Navigator and is in the top 1% of charities as far as accountability and transparency. So you know that your gifts are going to be well used. And something that I like is when it's an international project, there's another Rotary Club at the other end, making sure that that project is going well and those gifts are used for what they were intended. Now, I know some of you prefer to give locally, so it's important for you to know that when you give to the foundation, some of that gift comes back to our own club in the form of district grants, which our club has had many of those over the years. So you can really do both with one gift. Now, July began a new Rotary year, right? President Lori's administration. And so each year, our Rotary Club asks each of us to give at least $100 to the foundation sometime during the year. So if you don't yet have a plan for how you're going to do that sometime between now and next June, I ask you to please consider that. The thing that's important, and Fred referred to this for you to know, is that you don't have to be wealthy to become a major donor. Major donors are Rotarians who started giving every year and kept on going until they got to that 10,000. So it's how Fred became a major donor, it's how I and some of you have become major donors, so you can become a major donor. Now, the easiest way to give regularly is to have an account with the Rotary Foundation. And if you don't have an account, I can help you with that. Mike Cool can help you with that. You know Mike and Deline can help you with that. Once you have an account, it is very easy to give anytime, just a couple of minutes, really. Because if it's not easy, I tend to put it off. But you also, this is what I can do, can make that giving automatic. So you can say, you know, every December 1st, I want this amount to come out. Or you can do quarterly, or you can do monthly, or whatever works for your life. And the other thing is, if you don't want to set up an account for some reason, and I know that applies to some people, our club has a wonderful executive director here somewhere, right here in front of me, that will make it easy for you to give in whatever way you want to give. So the important thing is just please give every year, and someday we'll be recognizing you as a major donor. So with that, I want to present to Fred. Now don't look at this too closely. Here's a really nice plaque, but it doesn't have a medallion in it yet, but it will. Nice. So this is to Fred and Linda Cowan for your generous contributions to the Rotary Foundation and a major donor pin. Let's thank Fred.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Fred, and everyone who's a major donor. It really does make a difference. So one of the special things about this club is the sheer number of members that we have who have been with us for a long time. We currently have 61 members who have been in the club for more than 25 years. I'd like to have a general So you know what I say almost every meeting, how big is our club? We're the 13th largest Rotary club in the entire world. I say that repeatedly because we have different guests, and as a reminder to us that one of the reasons that we hold this stature is because of the members that we're getting ready to recognize. For people to spend 25 years or more in Rotary really says a lot, right, about what it means to them and to their lives. It's a lifelong commitment for these people. Several of them are here today, and so we have special membership pins. When I call your name, I'd like you to come up so I can give you your pin. As I also say, I'm not very good at affixing it to anyone's clothing, so I'll just hand it to you. But I saw Amy do that, so I feel like that is legitimate. And then we haven't really been doing this for a couple of years. So you'll see us do that quite a bit this year because we're trying to pay, we want to play catch up. We want to honor people as they meet those milestones. So we have two members that have been here with us in Rotary for some time, between 25 and 30 years. And of course, as we give you your pin, we say we are so grateful to you and thrilled to present this symbol of your dedication. The first one, if you'll please come up, is Bob Connolly, who joined in August of 1998. The second one is Stephen Lannert, who joined Rotary in September of 1998. Three people have been with Rotary for between 30 and 40 years. And again, we would reiterate, we are so grateful to you and thrilled to present this pin as a symbol of your dedication. The first one is Henry Heiser, who joined Rotary in July of 1992. The second one is Kathy Evans, who joined Rotary in March of 1993. Bob Nesmith, who joined Rotary in February of 1993.
All right, scoot down just a little bit this way. Thank you much.
That's wonderful. Say congratulations and thank you both. I would like now to invite to the podium Kristen Boone, Market Managing Director for Kentucky and Tennessee at PNC Institutional Asset Management Group. She's a club director, and today she's going to introduce our speaker.
How many of you all were recruited by one of the 5 people that we just recognized? I mean, I would say a handful of people in this room were a part, and so I'm really glad that we're doing that. I would say I personally was recruited by Henry Heiser many years ago, and so I think when we think about this club and the size and scale that we are, so thank you all for that. Pat Mulloy, our speaker today, was appointed Deputy Mayor for Economic Development by Mayor Craig Greenberg in May 2023, where he oversees the Department of Economic Development, the Office of Housing and Community Development, Codes and Regulations, and the Office of Planning. Although he's leaving this position, as you may have seen in the news recently, on August 31st, so I think we've got him just in the nick of time, he will continue to serve as a senior advisor to Mayor Greenberg and his administration in a volunteer role. Pat played a key role in establishing the Louisville Economic Development Alliance, or LEADA, and will continue to serve as the public-private entity's interim chief executive officer while the organization searches for a permanent leader. A Vanderbilt graduate, Mulloy spent nearly 20 years practicing law and became an entrepreneur, leading and founding multiple senior living companies, including Atria Senior Living, Life Trust America, and Elmcroft Senior Living. Prior to that, he served as Secretary of Finance in former Kentucky Governor Brereton Jones' administration from 1992 to 94. Mulloy serves on several boards, including serving as Vice Chair of University of Louisville Health, and is of counsel for Wyatt Tarrant Combs. Thank you, Pat.
I'm not sure I'm of counsel anymore. I think Franklin gave my office away last time I was over. The Wyatt firm. That's all right. Lord, I don't even know what to say. So many friends and folks here. Folks I went to college with, folks I went to law school here, two knuckleheads I grew up with here. A lot. And then I did have to laugh. Kathy Evans' father was my pastor at Walnut Street Baptist Church when I was little, where my brothers and I grew up. Where's Lucinda in this room? Lucinda was my priest for years at St. Matthew's Episcopal until she got the audacity to go run an Episcopal church in Paris. And she married my daughter, and John Jennings, where's John? His daddy baptized both my kids. So it's like, if you believe in a higher power, something's moving in the room. Anyway, lots of connections here. So I appreciate the opportunity. And like that one lady, a little bit short, so I'm going to pull this down. Good morning and good afternoon now. Let me take a few minutes and share with you a few reflections. I am leaving, I think actually I'm leaving on Friday, August 30th as Deputy Mayor. And it's been my privilege to work for the last 16 months for our city and for Craig on a host of development issues. He called me in April last year and asked me if I'd come do it. And he and I've chuckled about it more than once about this. I asked him back in May when I told him I was leaving, I said, you remember our conversation? And he laughed and he said, yeah, he said, you told me you'd work for 6 months and that you'd stay for a year if you liked it. And so I must have liked it. I've been there 16 months now. People ask me all the time, do you like the job? And I tell them about 70% of it I like. I have, at my age, I don't think of myself as old, but I have less patience with some of the petty stuff and some of the small matters than I probably should. But I love him. I've grown quite fond of him. He and I knew each other a little bit in business around town, and I watched his career from afar, but I was not in the inner circle of his campaign, and we were just friends. And I guess he thought an unemployed senior housing guy would come spend some time in the city. So I'd like to share with you today a few suggestions and a few reflections on the work that we've accomplished, and 3 suggestions for actions that I'd like to suggest for our city in addressing the challenges and opportunities which face our city, and they're substantial. And if you will indulge me to begin, I'd like to offer 2 reflections on our needs as a community to leave what I call the cheap seats and wade into our problems, engage them, and pierce through the anger, noise, rhetoric, mythology, and try something new. Let's listen to each other and build practical, if often imperfect, solutions to the problems that face our city. As an initial reflection, I would urge all of us to act with intention to solve problems. We're living through a time when far too many people, and I see it, I've seen a lot of it, when far too many people confuse activity and noise with action. They're not the same thing. Noise is just that. It's a distraction. It's a superficial way to pretend that you are contributing to the common good. One of my favorite policy thinkers, and some of you in the room probably know him, is a Kentucky guy originally. He's lived most of his life a career in D.C. and New York. A lawyer thinker named Philip Howard. He's originally from near Mount Sterling. He's written several books. One of the most important he wrote was a book called The Death of Common Sense. And he writes that democracy was intended to be a dynamic system, ever adjusting towards balance in a diverse society. He writes that the problems are indeed complex. The answers are not in the back of anyone's books. FDR said it best. It's common sense to try it, take a method, try it, and if it fails, admit it frankly, and try another. But above all, try something. Another reflection that I've had over the last 16 months is that you have to embrace new ideas. I didn't come here today to sell you on Craig Greenberg. This isn't a political speech. Having said that, I do respect him deeply and count him as a dear friend. He is a trier. He is someone who is willing to push new and significant and different solutions rather to intractable issues, and the challenges are significant. Several hundred people live on our streets every night. They don't have any homes. We have a shortage of over 200 first responders still in this community. Gang violence, all too real. Tidal wave of guns in this community, all too real. Flat population growth for a decade, flat. Not declining, but flat. We don't have enough bus drivers to take 93,000 kids to school every day. All true. Magic answers? I don't have any of them. Nor do any of us. And those that tell you they've got magic answers, you need to question. Tocqueville said, always try something. The chance to make mistakes that can be retrieved is the great privilege of Americans. So let us take that privilege and let's embrace some new ideas. Whether in dispersing the individuals who live under overpasses in our city, while at the same time trying to build housing and services to house our homeless brothers and sisters. Imagining new and better ways to recruit first responders and police officers to our community. We're using TARP to experiment on a bold new way to engage drivers to take the kids to school. We're daring to go spend 6 or 7 days in the offices of the state legislature, which is what Craig did, building relationships, regardless of what party they belong to, and delivering a historic amount of money to this community. Not in any of our lifetimes has the state legislature appropriated $100 million in new cash to be spent in the central business district in this community. Never happened. I've made 3 trips to Manchester, Kentucky. I'll get a gold star for that. But there are real relationships with Bob Stowers that matter. David Osborne's a Louisvillian, lives in Oldham County, but the Speaker of the House is a Louisvillian. And additionally, thinking of new ways to drive economic development in our community. That was the first conversation I had with Craig when he came in. He said, we all stand on the shoulders of people that come before us, so there's nothing pejorative about any of this. All kinds of good work. My friend Ken Euler is somewhere in this room, and all kinds of people have led chambers and other organizations in this community, but life is dynamic and it's moving, and he asked us to think of new ways to tackle some of these problems. And so today I'd like to suggest 3 actions that I believe Louisville must take in order to become the best city that we can be. My story is a typical Louisville story. I was raised by my mom and dad here. These fine brothers of mine over here were all products of the public school system. Mr. Gross and I didn't put about it because it wasn't open when I graduated. My dad was raised by a single mom near 6th and Hill, and 6th and Magnolia, actually. It was class of 44 and a half. I always chuckle about that because he was a war kid. And they were graduating them in half years then. And because of the war, and he served and came home, and the GI Bill, he was the first in his class, nobody else had been to college before. But the GI Bill changed the course of his life. He sent him to the University of Louisville, which he loved, and the law school changed the course of his life. I always chuckle about my mom. Mom was the youngest of 2 sisters and a brother who went off. He served in the South Pacific during the war and never came home. They all graduated. They grew up in Stearns. They graduated from Somerset High School. There weren't jobs much down in the south central part of Kentucky. Both older sisters came to Louisville because they'd heard about a new place where you could get a job. My mother came here to get a job at the same place that they did. It's called Appliance Park, owned by a company called General Electric. So that's what brought her from Somerset here. I say these things as a native Louisvillian who's raised his family here. I've built businesses here. I've worked alongside many of you all, and I've contributed time, money, and talents to this community. I met you stuffing envelopes with Harvey Sloan, the quarter of 4th and Magnolia in 1979. We thought he was going to be governor. I love this city. I care deeply about its future. It's a city that's opened 1,000 doors for me. I also say these things today as someone I've run businesses all across the country, 35 states and 3 different senior housing companies, and I've seen how world-class cities and not so world-class cities operate and how businesses are run. So my first suggested action that we have to do in Louisville is change our culture. And that starts with a foundational principle. I am so tired. We don't need to be Nashville. We don't need to be Indianapolis. We don't need to be Columbus or anywhere else. I was lucky enough to get educated. Both my brothers and I, we all were sent to Nashville to go to college. And I stayed there and went to law school. And it's an amazing town. But I got over Nashville envy a long time ago. We just need to be the best version of ourselves. And we haven't been that for too long. Again, this is not pejorative. We all stand on the shoulders of all kinds of people that have come before us. But we haven't dreamed big enough as a city. Perhaps we haven't had enough confidence, or we haven't wanted to be disappointed if we tried and came up short, or maybe we believed it was just too hard to compete in a global economy against Nashville or Indianapolis or whatever, or to be first-rate in education. We haven't spoken the truth openly, directly, and often enough about our problems. And we haven't been willing to trumpet our assets and strengths loudly enough to people who know far too little about Louisville. When I came aboard with the mayor, he'd just gotten back from all the new mayors get to go to there's a mayor's college at the Kennedy School at Harvard, and he'd gone, and that's run by a fellow named Stephen Goldsmith, who was a great sort of pioneering mayor in Indianapolis back in the early 90s. He built all the rich work when Purdue Medical Center merged, all the bridges, or the bridge building up there with the Eli Lilly Foundation. Goldsmith was in charge of all that. And the mayor said, call him and see if he's got any ideas for a consultant that could help us come in and take a fresh look at how we do economic development here. Called him, the guy picks his phone up in Cambridge, and he says there's a guy right up the road from me. He's the head of the U.S. Site Selectors Guild, which is the largest site selection organization in the country. It's a guy named Larry Gigerich, and he's got a firm up in Indianapolis. And I called Gigerich, he picked up his phone, and the next thing I knew, we had engaged him, and he came in here and he said, let's get a 80-something person group of volunteers, business leaders, education leaders, not-for-profit leaders, and let's come and do some listening and working over the last 6 months of last year, and that's what we did. He's the consultant that helped us build this new economic development plan. I asked him in the original conversation, I said, tell me about Louisville. This guy brings big factories and plants and companies all over the world to cities all over the country. He said it's an extraordinary city, great resources, extraordinary location. You sit on top of the largest water aquifer in America. So we don't talk about a lot of it, it's true. And I go build a lot of advanced manufacturing in Arizona going forward. There's no water out there, but there is water here because of the Ohio River. So I said, tell us about our brand. He said, well, the good news is it's neither good nor bad. I'm basically quoting him. I said, what do you mean? He said, too often you're a flyover city. And he said, you haven't told your story very well. And he said, the world, he said, there is a relocation, a recentering of business in this central core of the United States for a lot of reasons, land costs, labor costs. It's a complex issue, but a lot of business is going to relocate sort of the Chicago to Birmingham corridor in the next decade. I think you're going to see that. And he said, you've got a 2-year window to tell your story, tell the world that Louisville's open for business, and that it's a great place to live and work. So the first thing I would urge us to do is change our attitude, more precisely our culture. Embrace a culture of celebration of this city. To all of you that have been in business before know culture eats strategy for lunch every day. Henry, you can have the best strategy in the world, and if your horse is behind running a company, you're not going to get anywhere. So culture eats strategy for lunch. The culture has to embrace the imperative of excellence, the refusal to accept mediocrity, the willingness to step outside our comfort zone. I will say this about Nashville. I ran a company for Morgan Stanley in Nashville for 5 years, and I got hooked in there with that they have a healthcare mafia, kind of like we have here in Louisville. And one of the things they do better there, I think we're learning to do it better here, they celebrate failure there. A lot of PE firms down there, standing up businesses. If you fall and scuff your knees and get back up, you are celebrated for trying there. And I would urge us that ought to be part of our culture here. 25 years ago, I remember lots of people that fall and scuff their knees, and then it's like, a lot of eyes roll and stuff like that, instead of people celebrating the fact that they took a big risk to try to create jobs. And if we do all that, we'll get growth. We'll get growth in education, growth in productivity, growth in good paying jobs, and growth in our population. Second, I would urge us to act to implement this new economic development plan of the mayor's. It's called Growing Louisville Together. Giggers, the consultant who met with over 80 volunteer citizens from private, many of you in this room served on that board. It's not a board, it's just a volunteer thing. Private, nonprofit education leadership wrote the Growing Louisville Together plan. You can find it on our website. I tell people all the time, it's not Holy Scripture. It's nothing, it's not set in stone, but it is a dynamic. It's 50 pages. You can read it in the afternoon. It's a thoughtful, fresh examination of how we do economic development. It's the first such look we've done as a community in about a decade. The organization is going to be called the Louisville Economic Development Alliance. We've actually got a website now, LouisvilleAlliance.org. You can go there and pull down the plan and take a look at it. At the heart of it are 5 pillars, 5 basic premises, if you will, foundational elements. The first is quality of place. Louisville's an extraordinary place with great quality of place, but we got a lot of quality of places, I'm not quite sure what the verb is or noun is there, but you get my point, that are tired. Whether it's parks that have been starved for capital for 25 years, a tired Belvedere with the most extraordinary view in the city of Louisville, and it's a concrete pad sitting right across from behind Anna's building there up at the top of Fifth Street and across over the river there. So focusing on quality of place, and that's going to be a lot of the work that the mayor's doing with this $100 million that he's bringing back from the state legislature. And the mayor went up there and made that deal, but I cannot say enough about Bob Stivers and David Osborne and all the other leaders, Jason Nemus and Julie Rocky Adams. They don't have to be members of the mayor's party, but the relationships there are strong, bridge building, conversations. May disagree on some policy issues here and there, but rich rewards for this community because of that bridge building. The second issue is people. By that I mean talent, attraction. I don't see my friend Dr. Schatzel here, but she and the universities I've come to believe are the absolute linchpin on this issue. Here's the number. Our population has grown 6% in a decade. Okay. Divide 6% by 10. That's less than a point a year. That's 6/10 of 1 point if I'm doing my math in my head right. The good news is the curve modestly upward. It's not going down, but it's not growing. And that's got to change. If all the tourists that came here, we'll probably have nearly, Cleo Battle will tell you, 2 million tourists that come to Louisville this year. If all of the tourists, Barbara, became residents of this city, our job would be done. Historic numbers year after year come and see and taste this city. Historic Derby, the 150th running this year, the largest in history. The PGA, everybody will tell you, from not just Jimmy Kirchdorfer, but the folks with the PGA, the most successful professional golf PGA tournament, notwithstanding the fact that we had a rest, but a tragedy or two at that event, but the most extraordinary PGA golf tournament in history here. And they just announced last week the most important women's golf event in the world is coming here in a couple of years. And yes, we are one of the 6 finalists. We are still in the game for the Sundance Film Festival. I like going to movies. I'm not an expert. There are some experts, Gil Holland, Kaveh Zamani, and some other folks that invest a lot of time and money in that industry, in this community. Rabbit Hole and Kaveh they are the exclusive bourbon sponsor for the Sundance Film Festival, which I didn't know, and have been for 10 years. When they came, when the board came to town, Robert Redford's daughter was there, and he walked up and hugged Gil and Kaveh like they were its old home week. But we are in the final 6 cities for that, and that's an extraordinary thing. It's something to be proud of. We started that day. They were here Wednesday, 2 weeks back. The governor flew in. We met him in the winter circle at Churchill Downs, and then finished the day with a dinner at Common. That was 9 o'clock, and I mean everybody from Lonnie Ali, John spoke to him. It was an incredible day, and I think we've got a shot at landing that here. And that you can't put a price tag on the branding, what that would do for our community. So the mayor, and this is right in the mayor's sweet spot. That project is being accomplished with a huge network of film artists, industry investors that call Kentucky home. And for those of you that don't know, Kentucky and Georgia have the 2 richest tax credits. Laura shake her head because she knows these rules. The 2 richest tax credits for the film industry in America. If you make a film here, it's a refundable tax credit. It's about 35%. If you spend $10 million, John, you're going to get a check back from the state for about $3.5 billion. So real film, movie productions are all getting done across this community and across this state. The richest, it was a cool day. You know about building bridges. The richest point of the day for me was Bob Stiles, Republican from Manchester, sitting there with his pal, Ventura Herring, who many of you know, state representative here, soon to be state senator, and they're talking about the healing power of art to the board of the Sundance Film Festival, this Republican and this progressive from the city of Louisville, with their arms around each other, and they're telling the story about this guy named Teddy Abrams and what he's done to build bridges across this state. So it's extraordinary stuff that's going on. Attracting and keeping talent, getting people to know the story of this place, and come here and live. The third pillar of the plan is capital. If we don't have enough private equity here, I'm going to lose a lot of sleep over that because money usually finds good ideas. We have a confusing array of public finance tools in this town. They're not bad. The city's got 6 different bonding authorities, maybe 7. But we have a plan right now to try to rationalize those. We're not going to wholesale change a bunch of statutes, but we don't have a greenback, for example. We don't have a place where for sustainable type borrowing to occur. Fourth, we need a brand. And the mayor's all over this. We haven't started this process yet. There'll be a lot of stakeholders in this. But by a brand, I don't mean a logo or a slogan, but a thoughtful conversation about what Louisville is and what Kentucky is. Interesting, we're in the process of recruiting a search firm right now to help us find the CEO for LEADA. And one of the big time search firms, the guy called me last week and I was chatting with him, and he does consulting for a lot of cities. And he said to me, you understand how rich your brand is? And I said, well, I live here, I like bourbon, I go to the races occasionally. But he said, he just finished a major study for Indianapolis. And the mothers and fathers of the city in Indianapolis are upset because Louisville's brand blew their brand away. So when you pierce through it, people have a sense of the richness of what we are here and what we have. And the mayor's committed to helping us tell our story better. Fifth, we need an engine, a driver of economic change. The mayor has built a 501c6 entity. C4s or C6, cities do these in all kinds of different ways. It's not a C3. If you write a check to it, it's not a charitable contribution. It's a business deduction. It's called the Louisville Economic Development Alliance. He describes it as a bit of an embarrassment of riches. We set out to get about 30 people on the board. He said, well, we better ask about 50 to get 30. He asked 50 plus, and nobody said no. So we've got a 50 person board right now. I think that's a tribute to him and his leadership, and the people want a new direction on some issues. He's asked 17 of those folks to serve on an executive committee. Kim Hallbauer, who many of you know, is the vice chair of the board. the president of Fifth Third Bank here. It is a self-perpetuating government board. Today the dollars come in, they're state dollars, not state dollars, well, no, city dollars and private sector dues. It's about a $6 million budget. It's close to half and half. Where that is in 3 or 4 years, it's a dynamic thing. I don't have the answers to all of that. But the mayor he's an ex officio member, but he'll serve a term or two as chair, and then he'll rotate off. He'll always serve on the board as mayor. But it's not, Henry Heiser may be the chair, or Pat Mulloy, or Terry Tyler. It'll be some other citizen from the private sector. One of the richest things when we put this thing together, we called Dr. Schatzel, obviously, because she's key at the University of Louisville. She said, I'm in, I want to sit on the board, I want to help any way we can. Ty Handy at Jefferson College said the same thing. Eli Capilouto called the mayor from Lexington. He attended all 6 sessions. When have you seen the University of Kentucky come 6 times to Louisville to sit in these sessions? And then he called the mayor and said, I want to be on the board. So the president of the University of Kentucky is serving on the Louisville Economic Development Alliance board, which I think is just a nice tribute to the new and different way of thinking about bridge building. We've done a lot of work. We're going to need all your help to make this thing a reality. The last action I want to suggest is for us to speak, and this is just my own reflection on sort of where we are as a city and a country, really. I would urge us to speak thoughtfully and truthfully with each other. I didn't say loudly. A lot of loudness out there right now. I said thoughtfully and truthfully. One of my great pals, Jay McGowan, ran Bellarmine for years, and it was my joy to sit on his board for a long time. And he never finished a speech, usually toasted the Irish or something like that. He always talked about in veritatis amore, which is the motto out of Bellarmine, and it's Latin for in love of truth. And I was thinking on that when I was thinking on these remarks. We're living in a time when mythology, dangerous rhetoric, and false ideas distract us everywhere. I can't remember, I remember my dad always talked about the Constitution saving us during Watergate and all that stuff. He's a sort of great student of public policy. But today's world is stretched way further than those times, Freddie, I think said. We're living in a time, it's hard to remember a time for me anyway, when the dialogue and discourse have been so coarse and so distorted. The issues that I talked about at the outset, safety, public safety, homeless brothers and sisters, tidal wave of guns, gun violence, gang violence, they're complex and difficult, really hard issues. I was reading recently 1962 commencement address that President Kennedy gave. I gave it to the graduating class at Yale in 1962, David. And it's a famous speech where he made it quick. He said, I now have the best of both worlds. I've got a Harvard education and a Yale degree. And after he made his quip, though, he made a really important point that I think resonates for where we are today. He said, this is 1962, might as well have been 2024. The central issues of our time are subtle, and they're less simple. They relate to means of reaching common goals, to research for sophisticated solutions to complex and obstinate problems. He said the greatest enemy of truth is very often not the lie, not the deliberate, contrived, and dishonest, although we hear plenty of that, but the myth, persistent, persuasive, and unrealistic. Kennedy said, and I love this line, we too often enjoy the comfort of easy opinions without the discomfort of thought. So I would leave you today with this challenge. Let's set down in this community the comfort of opinions and use our brains, talents, and love of this place, and let's embrace, and it's hard, but let's embrace the discomfort of thought and thinking through the problems we face. If we do that, I think we can lower the rhetoric and use that discomfort to address the tough and tractable issues. At the end of the Growing Louisville Together plan, we wrote this sentence, which I will leave you with. In the history of every city, there are times when streams of opportunities come together to create a river of change. This is a time for Louisville. Think big. Move outside our comfort zone. Act with a sense of urgency. Don't just make noise, but act with a sense of urgency to achieve transformational results. Our city doesn't have a day to waste. It's time to get to work. appreciate you having me here. Thank you.
Anyone here? Okay.
You want me to stay here?
Yes, please. That's why I came over here for the guest one, because I would like you to stay there.
right.
We're going to open you up to questions if you're ready for that. Thank you so much for the message that you brought to this club today, this group of civic leaders. And I think your message was one of action, which is always appreciated. We have something that we can leave here with, something that we can think about. And thank you for your service also to the city this last 16 months. So Rotarians only, this is one of the privileges of being Rotarians, that you get to ask our illustrious speakers questions after they talk. If you'll line up behind me, there are, as you know, some guidelines that are on the screen. If you would try to follow those, they deal with timeliness, and then we will get started. We are at time, and so to reiterate what Delene said, if anyone needs to leave, if you'll quietly please do so during the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat, for your service. Good to see you.
Yes, sir.
Definitely agree with the analysis, inability or unwillingness to dream big, lack of capital. I keep coming back to the local tax code because it literally prevents us, because it's not, the capital's not there, the ability to come up with 50 projects over 5 years and spend $3 billion. And I know it's not a simple solution overall, but I think that lack of tax code is fundamental. And until that's changed, we can do important things, but nothing really transformational. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. Directionally, you're correct. It's a constitution. You got to get on the ballot. Elena Muldoon led the effort this last fall. I think they knew, Neville, that this was an iterative thing. This is a multi-year process. I know you've been involved.
If I could, the effort is still afoot.
Oh, it's still afoot, yeah.
Okay.
And the issue is we got a kind of one-trick pony. We got a local income tax. There's an insurance premium, taxes, and some other things. But the $995 million budget, I almost said billion, that's federal. We're about $1 billion budget at the city level. It's not inelastic, but it's an income tax, and there are other ways. You know, where the world's moving to a consumption tax model, and there are other ways to tackle it. We just don't have the tools here, and it takes a constitutional amendment to do it, which is a lot of conversation, a lot of work.
Hi, Pat. I'm Kevin Fields. I'm President and CEO of Louisville Central Community Center, Club Director, former Chair of DEI, and wanted to thank you, first of all, for your presentation today and for your leadership. I really appreciate your message, your ideas, and the tone in which you delivered to us today. And you got me focused in on the economic development plan, so I was, scanning the plan as you were speaking. And it just pointed to a couple of questions around engagement, community engagement, and inclusion. I noticed in the report of the plan that you have a list of stakeholders that have already been engaged in the process. So my question is, what is the ongoing process for stakeholder engagement, and how do you build upon that momentum that's already been started?
I think that's a fair question, Kevin. We worked hard to build a diverse group. All of the meetings were open, all open meetings, all open to the press, because we take taxpayer dollars. These things, we will operate under the open meetings law. Caitlin Shearer, here's my Chief Communications press person for another 8 days. If we don't, well, I think we'll stay together. And, but all the meetings will be open, and so I want to make that real clear about things. But that's an ongoing process that you've got to bring the community along and engage them. And there are all kinds of stakeholders, whether it's University of Louisville, the West End Opportunity Partnership, that will be part of this network as well. I don't have all the magic answers, Dave, except that I know the mayor, when he insisted that strands and threads of equity, sustainability, and engagement run through this process. We did our very best. Ultimately, we listened for 6 months, and we put a plan together, and now we've got a plan, and we'll continue to listen. It's a elastic thing. It's not static. So we'll continue to listen. It's our pledge. Thanks. Hey, Chris.
Thank you, and thank you for your service. and but 16 months, thank you for 16 months, and then
Thank
the
my wife,
volunteer. We will, next time. There was a couple things that I was thinking about. It was the strength and the depth of Rotary and the people in this room, and we had a call to action to be, what action would you want Rotarians to take representing all different sizes of business, all different industries? What could that look like? And I'm going to throw in another question, and you can do it. I think often that Louisvillians, we need to sell ourselves again, because the people that visit Louisville are loving what they see, and I think sometimes we're our own worst enemy. And so when we think about brand, how do we then become a part of establishing our brand with ourselves?
I'll take the last one first. There's a branding process. I've got Caitlin's drafted an RFQ, but I haven't even read it yet, and I haven't gotten it to the mayor. But there will be, a public process about how Louisville thinks about its brand. There's an informal working group. Caitlin, what's the name of that group? CCI, not DCI, the company. Yeah, there's a community marketing sort of informal networking group, but, and I said this before, U of L does, I think, a pretty good job at it. I know Dr. Schatzel's rethinking a lot of that work. Probably the best branding people in town are Cleo's people at Louisville Tourism. There'll be a lot of stakeholders in that process. In terms of what you can do, I would say engage and wade in to some of the problems. Two areas come to mind. If you haven't participated, and I'm not asking you for money here today, but go over and see it if you haven't. The wellness center that the police department built over near, about a mile from the University of Louisville campus, it's an extraordinary thing. It's still underfunded. Guys like Neville, I know you spent a lot of time. You know, we have a dollar in, dollar out Metropolitan Police Foundation in this town. I remember Erica Shields told me one time that, you know, Atlanta, they got Coca-Cola and a lot of things, but, you know, they sit on a real foundation, police foundation, with real corpus. We don't in this town. And so the sort of softer needs for our police department and our first responders, that's a program where everybody can get engaged. Get engaged. If you haven't driven by, it's not the prettiest place right now, but if you haven't driven by Brook and Breckenridge over to Floyd Street, they're building right now the community care campus. We're getting ready to take some buildings down there. The mayor took a risk and bought. The city paid $6 or $7 million for that land. And then we ran an RFQ process. The Volunteers of America, many of you know Jennifer Hancock. They've got a multi-phase plan there that will be a medical respite. U of L and Norton's are going to JV on that with somebody help with the family, something like on Arnold's organization. And so there'll be medical respite there. There'll be a women and children's shelter there. There will be youth transitional services there. There will be affordable housing service there. I think VOA is going to move their corporate headquarters from 4th Street. There, right across from, the old Male High is now South H&R. And so you're going to have a new homeless and service center there for 150 people every night right there off Broadway. And that matters a lot because you've got the education corridor going down Broadway. And Alexandra Thurstone is trying to run a school at St. Francis there. She's got all kinds of issues there with homeless folks in or near that corridor. And then we've got the Lumen situation, biggest employer place in this town, 16,000 people going to work every day in Lumen. So I would say if you want to get involved in the Economic Development Alliance, watch us, help us on that work. The police wellness center work is good, and this community care campus. The mayor got $20 million of the 100 will be in that campus, but it's about a $50 million project. So it's going to take a bit, that's why it's going to be phased. Okay, John.
First of all, I want to thank you and Francie, your wife, for the last 16 months, because I know there are a lot of other things you could have done with your life that would have been a lot less rigorous and very enjoyable, and I know you've enjoyed what you've done. But I really do appreciate, and I know Rotary really appreciates what you've done and the giving of all of your time and your expertise to the city. So thank you so much for doing that. The thing I wanted to mention to you, though, is this goes back actually to National and Vanderbilt when we were both there in law school, and you were a year ahead of me. I think you graduated in 77, I graduated in 78. So I'm a first-year law student, my little student house outside of campus there on Blair Boulevard. And in the spring of that year, you would have been a second-year student. On my little 10-inch black and white rabbit ear TV, I'm watching the local 10 o'clock news, and this gentleman came on, and I don't know to this day who he was, and I don't know if you happened to catch this or not, but he came on, and he may have been the head of what was called the Algonquin Society back then in Nashville, which was the then think, premier business leaders group. And he came on and he made an announcement that I would like you to consider, or somebody you know to consider making on behalf of the city. And I was shocked when he said it, because Nashville at that time was like Louisville now, and kind of where we are now. He said, the business community has come together, and we want to make an announcement that over the next 25 years to 30 years, we are going to become, we're open for business, we're going to become the next Atlanta, okay? And over that 25, it took about 34 years until they opened Music City Center, the big convention center, before things really exploded. But they had a concerted plan, and they followed that plan in Nashville. And it did explode, and it did become the next Atlanta. Atlanta became super Atlanta in that time period. But I would like this vote, kind of, if nothing else, a show of confidence. Is there some way that the business community can come together, and whether it's you making the announcement, which I think would be perfect, but maybe you don't, but somebody make the announcement that, well, you know, and maybe it's a party gift, you can make that announcement. But anyway, you and the mayor, or the mayor making the announcement that the business community has come together. We are going to move forward, that we are open for business, that we do have confidence, and that we are going to move forward. That was really the beginning of what happened in Nashville. And it took a little while to get there for people to rally around it, but that was the beginning. And I think I'm asking you, could you or somebody you know consider making that type of announcement as a show of confidence in the business community in our community to try to rally the entire community around us being a growth center?
I hear you.
Okay.
No, and I don't disagree with you. And I think one of the richnesses of a new organization like this is that this can be a place where we make those kind of clarion calls. If you will. And I do remember, I don't remember that particular incident, but you know, and that the flip side of that, what you just described, that's our opportunity here. Right, because Nashville is now, it really is Atlanta. Yeah. I love it, it's a great place, but it's overgrown, it's crazy expensive, the infrastructure can't get around.
And I'm not saying it's become the next Nashville, next Atlanta, I'm just saying that vote.
You've got commitment to growth, I hear you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, John. My old friend.
Thank you, Pat. I'm just wondering, first of all, this is very exciting. And I love the death of common sense, I read that all the time, try to reread it.
He's a good man.
How will this organization work with GLI, been around here so long, who's working on regional economic development matters?
There's actually a document we've written, and GLI is aware of it, and we've had a lot of conversations with GLI. They are, I describe them as complementary but distinct organizations, David. GLI's mission is 15 counties. This mission is Louisville. It's just Louisville and Jefferson County. And it's charged with the business retention, attraction, and development. That's the charge of the Louisville Economic Development Alliance versus the chamber. So,
One quick question.
all right.
Atlanta and Nashville both have a terrible traffic problem.
They do.
As we grow, can we do something other than highways and automobiles?
Well, yeah, fair comment. I don't have all those answers.
Thank you so much, that was great, and you can tell everybody's hanging on your every word, so thank you for being here. Next week, we'll be at the same place, same time. It is August 29th meeting next week. It's going to be Dr. Kim Schatzel from the University of Louisville. She's the president. So I think that's a perfect lead-in for some of the things the Deputy Mayor talked about and how important our university is to our community. If you want to come next week, you'll need to RSVP by noon on Monday the 26th, or you can use this QR code. And guests, as soon as I ring the bell, if you will make your way to this corner, what is Rotary Table, where Louis Seeger will provide a few minutes of overview of the club. We are adjourned.